Hello and welcome to Radically Embody Love Podcast. In this episode, Jessica and I gonna talk about why it's harder for us to receive than give. Not so long ago, I posted this question in my community. Do you have the hardest time receiving or giving? And most people said receiving. So today we're going to discuss why that might be. And from my own experience, I know that I wasn't even aware of it until I was. So it was very hidden in my subconscious. But I recall when I started noticing it, I recall all the times that even other people were telling me that I had a hard time receiving and I was dissing it. I remember once at work, a coworker told me, I know you don't like it when we um, tell you that we like what you're wearing or we like how your hair, any compliment, but I'm just going to tell you. I thought for a minute, why would she say that? I wasn't even aware that I didn't like to be complimented. So and once a partner told me, oh, I like your hair. And I didn't even, make a comment. We went out and somebody else mentioned that. And I remember him saying, oh, I complimented her, but she dissed me totally. So all of this, unknowingly not being able even to receive compliment. And then when time came for me to examine it, I realized I wasn't comfortable with receiving anything. I was very comfortable with giving. As a matter of fact, I was always comfortable picking up the check when I would go with my friends rather them picking up the tab for me. And when I questioned it, for me, it went really deep into reasons that were not very clear until I did some hypnotherapy, actually. And it went back all the way to childhood that uh, being needy or having expectation was not safe because I was disappointed and not wanting to feel that was one reason that it was not comfortable for me to actually receive. So did you have any experience with that, Jessica?
Well, yes, but I have to say, I think it's ironic that I had no idea what you were going to start with. And as soon as we got on our call today, I complimented you on your hair.
Yeah.
And here you are
Yeah. Yeah.
sharing your story about compliments and hair. I just love the synchronicity of that because I had no idea that um yeah, that would be a huge thing, that
Yeah,
you've
well, you
experienced in the
actually, when
past.
you did it, I remember that, that's why I shared it. I remember a time that somebody told me again. Yeah.
And
Well,
how was it to receive today versus how it felt in the past?
oh, it felt very natural today, and I was grateful to receive it.
It's amazing how even those small things can really show up
Yeah.
and our capacity to whether it's receive a compliment or receive, like you said, when we're out at a restaurant or somebody picks up the tab,
Hmm.
and it's these small ways that I think it's easier for us to look at because it's harder to start with like the big ways we don't receive. It's easier to look at the small ways and practice receiving, practice saying yes when our body wants to say no or contract, practice opening up to a compliment, or practice allowing someone to gift us with something, and then take stock of like, well, what are the fears coming up?
Mm.
Why is it so hard? As you said, doing the work, whether it's going into the body, whether it's looking at the feelings of what am I afraid of and why is this so hard for me and what's coming up for me. That's something I've done a lot,
Hmm.
because I also tend to give more. I tend to automatically just want to give and love. And what I realized is that my giving wasn't always actually rooted in love. Sometimes it was rooted in other subconscious um, survival mechanisms and false forms of love. I like to call false forms of love we've been conditioned to accept. And I was in many ways seeing the other person and wanting to give to them, but not allowing them to see me. And so when they did see me, I deep down felt really unworthy of that. And how can you see me? How can you love me? Me? Who am I? Who am I? Like me? And so I would naturally want to push away love because I didn't believe I was worthy of receiving it, and receiving it made me feel guilty, as if I became a burden anytime somebody wanted to give to me. And I think that's really, really common, not only because of just our general society around that, like we should be really independent and we shouldn't need anything and we shouldn't look to others for anything, but even more deeply, particularly for women, it's rooted in we are here to serve, deeply embedded subconscious beliefs around putting the other first and being loving, and that it's selfish to think of ourselves. And so for me, when it came to receiving, it meant, oh, it's me. Wait, it's not supposed to be about me. It's supposed to be about you.
And it doesn't even feel safe sometimes to receive, to open yourself up. And you said something that I totally resonate with, because if I allow myself to receive, I have to be vulnerable enough to be willing to be seen, right? It's like that part of me that wants to be seen and at the same time is afraid of being seen. I'm putting that in, and the aspect of receiving is the vulnerable part of me that is afraid. And that is causing me that, in a way, reject that part of myself and therefore reject your gift.
Yeah. And I know for me, because it's been my primary path, it is the path I take my clients on, of feeling safe to be seen, because it is so deeply rooted. It is so deeply rooted in our nervous systems and our emotional body and our mental body and our energetic body. Our soul is afraid of being seen. And it's deep work, but I don't believe that we can ever actually receive truly the love that we are worthy of receiving if we don't do that work to open to it within ourselves first. And I know you feel very passionately about that as well.
100% I agree. I think if we don't learn to receive, and that is an obstacle to experiencing true love.
You know, another thing that came up while you're speaking is, you know, one of the things that for me, when I would receive, I would automatically feel fear. Oh no, what am I going to have to give in return? Oh no, if I receive, I'm going to have to give something back, and then it's going to feel like an obligation or a duty or a have to. And then, oh no, I don't want that weight. I don't want to have to. And so I would be afraid that if somebody was giving to me, it came with attachments and expectations that I didn't know I wanted to fulfill. And so that was a huge thing for me to unravel from, and finally get to the realization that even if, because very often people do give with an ulterior motive, conscious or unconscious, that even if someone was giving to me with an unspoken expectation, I've experienced that a lot, then it's still my choice at the end of the day to decide whether or not I will meet it. So I will accept. So what I tell myself now when I receive is, especially if I feel like they might have an unspoken expectation, depending on the relationship, I might just voice it. Or maybe I don't, and I just know that I will receive this freely if this is what they are choosing to give, but I will not and do not agree to the unspoken expectation or demands that might be behind this. I will receive this freely only. And that for me releases any cords or energetic attachments to then having, quote, submitting to an unspoken expectation or obligation in response to receiving. And that for me allows it to feel more free so that I'm always in choice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other part of it is, do we feel that the other person is genuinely giving, or we have it in back of our mind that what is the motivation behind? Because I had that experience actually, like with a partner. I felt like every time that I gave, and I gave unconsciously, he thought like literally once he asked me, what is it that you want in return? I'm like, nothing. I just, So yeah, just being in a place that we can really truly receive and give without expectation, give from our heart. And a lot of us, as you mentioned, it's just in our culture historically, especially as women, we have given and given without even asking, do I really want to give? Why do I want to give? And we just have done it to the point that we don't even recognize sometimes that is a habit, rather than, in a way, is a habit of pleasing others. By asking ourselves first the question of, why do I want to give? Where is this giving coming from?
Right. Is it rooted in fear? Is it
Yeah.
rooted in attachment? Is it rooted in need? And I think that we can subconsciously feel those same things when another is giving to us in those ways. Even energetically, it might just not feel good or feel clean. And it is so much easier to fall into those old patterns and habits than to bring consciousness to why am I giving, and why is it hard to receive, and how can I honor how worthy I am of receiving in a situation, or how can I honor what I truly desire to give in a situation. I know I would sometimes give in ways unconsciously. I didn't know it at the time, but I would unconsciously give in ways because a part of me wanted to be needed. And if I'm giving this and I'm needed, then they can't leave me, or then they'll love me, or then they'll want me around, or I'll do this for you because then I'm going to make myself valuable to you. That was a big thing I really had to lovingly look at in my shadow, because I didn't feel like I would be wanted if I wasn't doing something for someone or giving them those things. And really just cutting those cords, to my emotional need that was coming from outside of me.
Yeah, that also resonated with me. In a way, especially when it came to my kids, I did feel that if I don't give 100%, would I be loved, right? Like there's that. And goes back again, as you started like talking about not feeling lovable, worthy, just as we are, without doing anything, right? And then having this feeling that if I am not adding value to someone, am I still lovable for them, or am I worthy of their love? And just being me, is that enough to be loved, to be worthy of receiving?
Historically and culturally, no. Women were told, you are not worthy for who you are, and you are not worthy of love for who you are, and you do not have any inherent value for who you are. So historically and culturally, we have been told that for at least 5,000 years. So that's been passed down and passed down and passed down. And it's very, very not only held within the subconscious mind, because we've received those cellular memories and beliefs in gestation in our mother's womb. That's scientifically proven. But it's also still very much in our culture that we're only worthy when we do, when we're productive, when we have some external form of position, role, money, possession, person to give us value. It's very deeply rooted. I know that's a path that I've been on for at least 10 years of unraveling from all of that external power so that I could know my true divine power, and unraveling and unraveling and unraveling, which is why I do that with my clients, because I know it is the only way to experience freedom. And the really unfortunate part of that cultural and historical programming is that we as women have more work to do, inner work to do around, yes, actually, I am valuable. And it is not contingent on a man determining that I am valuable. And I do have inherent worth. And we can only do that from my personal experience, from what I witness in clients, and from all of my research. We can only do that when we reclaim our soul and our divinity, and that being our divine worthiness. Otherwise, we're subject to, enchained to those beliefs that no, we're not worthy of love for being who we are, until we decide that we are. And then when we decide that we are, and we do that process of unraveling and untethering and reclaiming, only then can we truly begin to reveal who we are and actually open to receive love for who we are.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, it's very, very deeply rooted, and we don't even think about it. Like when I think about now, like clients who really were suffering either because they couldn't have a child, and they felt like, if I am not a mom, who am I? Am I, that's how we add value, And then the other side of that is, I had someone who couldn't give natural birth, and the guilt of that I'm supposed to. Why can't I, right? And all the way that we have been defined as who we are, but by what we do as a mother, as a wife, caregiver. And who are we if we don't have an opportunity to do any of, or don't want to do any of that, right? We don't want to become mothers. We don't want to get married. We don't want to, even now, this day added to that is how much money we bring in to a relationship is part of the equation. I see it all the time. So it's not enough to be moms and take care of, be a wife, or is how much money you bring in that is bring in how much value, basically, like a currency you have to be worthy of love and worthy of having other things in your life, right? So it's something that we totally need to question and ask our why. Why am I doing this? Do I want to do this? Because I know, especially for me, I didn't even question this when I was younger. There was an expectation. I didn't even think that, oh, why do I want to get married? Why do I want to have kids? It was a natural expectation. Okay, like, it's just the rhythm of life. I got my degree, now I get a job, now I get married, now I have the kids, right? It is like, why? Why do I need to do any of that? Was not in the equation at all.
Usually something outside of us can gently shake us to start waking up to asking these kinds of questions. And I imagine most people listening right now are already somewhat awake to be tuning into a podcast called Radically Embody Love. I imagine that you guys are all, aware that there's more to the world than meets the eye, and desire to question more about why we're not experiencing more love and peace and harmony on this planet, and what we can do to experience that within ourselves. And something when you were speaking a few minutes ago, I don't want to forget to say it, so I'm going to say it now. If we're so conditioned to doing, right, then when we're receiving, it's the opposite. We're not doing anything. And I think that is the crux of why it can be so hard to receive, is because we're not doing. We're not. And then the fear. And if I'm not worthy. And if I'm not good. And if I'm not valuable. And so I would suggest that anytime you feel a sense of or difficult to receive, or a contraction, or a fear, or want to push it away, want to deny it, just really breathe in, take a moment, close your eyes, breathe into your body. I don't have to do anything to be worthy of receiving this.
And isn't it receiving is a feminine energy?
Yes, absolutely. And it's feminine in the sense of course, not woman feminine, but feminine in the sense that feminine body is our back body. So it literally requires us to lean back and receive into the front body, but we have to be in our back body to open to receiving. And so many of us, when we're in our front body, we're out, we're focused outward, we're looking outward, we're here. And then we lean back, and then we can open to receive in.
Yeah, and the value in culture is aimed at doing, right? And how much we can do rather than receiving.
And so another little fun practice, I think, would be is if this is something that I have started doing even a little bit more recently within the past year that I find to be really powerful, is just to, when you're meditating, because I'm a huge fan of embodied meditations, and that you actually bring your awareness into your back body and just lean into the chair, lean into the couch wherever you're sitting, lean into the floor if you're lying down, and just feel the back body, and just feel it and just lean into it, and just practice that leaning into yourself, leaning into the support around you. To energetically open that back body, because we often don't feel safe back there. That's a whole other story.
Yeah, just feeling supported by itself, right? And because that require you have to let go of it, control, and be open to receive support, love, and that is again vulnerable for most of us.
Very, very vulnerable, and vulnerability is a superpower. As we know that vulnerability allows us to actually be seen. And when we're not vulnerable, we keep our heart closed, or we don't allow the other person to truly see us, then we never get the opportunity to experience what it is to be loved by another. Truly. That doesn't require giving, that doesn't require doing, that doesn't require meeting all their needs or making them happy. And that's really rewiring and reworking of how we do relationship.
Yeah. So what do you think it takes for us to feel safe enough to allow ourselves to be vulnerable and to stop controlling and letting go?
I think it's definitely a process. I mean, the Embody Your Divinity program I have is 9 months, and I think all of that is partly this. And so I certainly don't think there's an easy answer for that. But one of the ways that I have found really powerful to allow myself to be more vulnerable is to spend more time in my heart and anchoring my heart to my womb. And that's why in the womb activation that I have, that's always available, that's really connecting the heart and womb space. Because when we can open our heart, which is what we as women tend to do, and I know we have male listeners too, but just in general, what we as women tend to do is open our heart out. But when we can start to anchor our heart in, anchor it down into the womb, then it's so much easier to receive, because we are anchored. Our heart is anchored into ourself.
Yeah.
So bringing that love down.
Yeah, all the practices that help us be aware be present for the moment, give us an opportunity to receive. Because, as we become unconscious, which most of the time I need to keep bringing myself back, I recognize that I'm either in the past or thinking ahead too much, and I'm not even here in this moment, then I don't have the opportunity in this moment to be open to receiving what is. And recognize that at any moment I have a choice if I'm aware. But if I'm not, then I don't have a choice, because then I am literally reacting to the past.
Or it's habit, or it's so
which is habits. Habit of the way we are. And we don't give ourselves that opportunity to examine.
I think that's a really, go ahead.
Go ahead. Now, I was going to say, a lot of the way that we are is just habits if we don't put consciousness into it.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to say, I feel like that's a good way to kind of leave our listeners today with just that practice of, bringing that conscious awareness, as you're saying, into each moment, but particularly over the next week after you listen to the episode. Anytime someone wants to give you something, anytime there's something you can open to receive, instead of habitually responding with a no or a contraction, just really open your heart, come into the moment, breathe. I have a choice here. This might be my normal. I might feel my body desire to contract. I might want to turn it away. I might want to say no, but how can I do something differently in this moment and bring consciousness to the why of that, so that I can open, even if I don't say yes this time, so that I can bring the consciousness and understand the why and look at how I might be able to open myself up more vulnerably to receive and lean back instead of feeling I have to always be out and be the one giving.
Yeah, and if we habitually giving, just pause and ask yourself, why am I giving? Do I really want to give?
Exactly. Yeah, so beautiful. I'm so glad we talked about this, especially we're recording this on Valentine's. It won't come out until next week, but I just love that it's such an important topic for us and in the world of love and self-worth. And so I'm grateful that we talked about this. And let us know your comments. If you have any questions, let us know how these practices go for you. You can follow us on @Radically Embody Love Podcast on Instagram, on Facebook, and we're on YouTube. You can go and leave some comments there as well. I know it's not as easy on iTunes and Spotify.
And we are appreciative of all our listeners, and we love to hear from you.
So much love to you all.
Bye.